Hey everybody, I'm feeling a little bit nostalgic tonight, so I am going to go through my INXS cassette collection. And INXS is a band that I've been a fan of since the early 80s. The first time I saw their video, The One Thing on MTV, and I've just kind of followed them throughout their career. And I've been collecting INXS since the 80s, but everything that I owned, at least at first, was on cassette because that was primarily the medium that I listened to music on. I think like most people my age in the 1980s. So I'll just go through each of the cassettes that I have and what I think of the particular album, what it meant to me, and we'll just see how it goes. I'm going to start off with their debut album, just a self-titled INXS album. You know, not a great debut, not a terribly strong debut album. It's not terrible, but there's a naivety to it. You know, it's very much a product of the 80s. You got songs on here like On a Bus, Roller Skating, which sounds almost like a Beach Boys song from the 80s, Body Language. And so they're just really, you know, trying to blend in with kind of the, you know, 80s new wave dance, synth kind of, you know, acts that were out back then. So, you know, it's okay, but it's definitely not as strong as the stuff that they would subsequently come out with. Second album is Underneath the Cover, no, Underneath the, sorry, I can't talk tonight. Underneath the Colors. This is a much stronger album. I love a lot of the stuff on here. Stay Young is a really great album opener. And then Horizons. I love Horizons. Just kind of a very moody, you know, second track. Just really a lot of, you know, what we'd come to expect from INXS. And it was kind of a great segue into their next album. Other stuff that I really like on here, you know, one of the things that I notice as I'm getting older is my vision is a lot worse. I can't imagine how I read the printing on some of these cassettes just because they're so small. But, you know, there's some lightweight pop stuff on here, like, what do we call it? Big Go Go. Underneath the Colors is a pretty decent song. Night of Rebellion is okay. Barbarian, I like a lot. What Would You Say? So it's not quite Shabooh Shoobah, but you can see the signpost, you know, pointing in that direction. Much stronger album than their debut, as far as I'm concerned. And for the most part, I enjoy just about all of it. I don't find, you know, I'm having to, you know, skip through any of the tracks on that album. I consider it, you know, pretty solid all the way through. Of course, not nearly as great as Shabooh Shoobah, their third album. And this was the album that made me really fall in love with INXS. You got so much great stuff on here. You know, obviously, The One Thing, To Look at You is a great track. Old World, New World, Don't Change is on here. Just such a great, and I don't know, there's just such a feeling about this particular album where, you know, it's an 80s album, but I don't know, it kind of transcends the 80s a little bit. Maybe it's just my nostalgia talking, but I love the crap out of this album. Spy of Love, you know, I think is great. Soul Mistake, Here Comes, just a great driving track. Black and White, Golden Playpen, I love very, very much. Jan's song is terrific. So just a really solid album all the way through, and one of INXS's best as far as I'm concerned. Now, the next one that came out was an EP, and this was called Decadance, which is just basically, at least the US version of this, is just some remixes of some tracks from Shabooh Shoobah, like To Look at You, The One Thing. There's a slower version of Here Comes. It's called Here Comes 2, which I really like. I almost prefer that to the version on Shabooh Shoobah. And then, you know, there's a remix of Black and White, but pretty cool, you know, at the time, just sort of a nice companion piece to Shabooh Shoobah. And then kind of the album that gets overlooked, I find, you know, in the 80s, the most overlooked INXS album, maybe of all of them, is maybe The Swing. This came out right in, I think, 1984 this was released. And this has the single, the original Sin. It's got the title track, Dancing on the Jetty, Johnson's Airplane, Love Is What I Say, Burn For You, I think might have been a little bit of a hit, but, you know, I think it's decent enough. It's not as great as Shabooh Shoobah, and I would say, you know, if I had to give it, you know, a ranking, maybe like 3.5 stars out of 5, but it's still enjoyable. If you like 80s INXS, you won't be disappointed by this album. And Listen Like Thieves is another excellent INXS album. Maybe, well, it's definitely in my top 3, but I'm trying to figure out. My favorite INXS albums are Shabooh Shoobah, Listen Like Thieves, and Kick. And I'm just trying to figure out, I don't know, I would say probably Shabooh Shoobah would be my number 1, then Kick, and then Listen Like Thieves would be number 3. But just a great album. I think this is the first INXS album that also had an instrumental, Three Sisters on it. But just, you know, This Time is on here, is a great track. Listen Like Thieves, What You Need. So just some great solid tracks on here. And this is a clear cassette. I know it was also issued on a white cassette. This was what was in the gatefold. And then you've got the lyrics here. And if you are watching this video, you probably already know what I'm talking about. And INXS Kick. Just a great album. I was in high school. I was a senior in high school when this album came out. And I played this cassette to death. Probably broke the damn cassette. I listened to this so much. But, you know, the biggest hits off here were New Sensation, Need You Tonight was the first single off there, although on the single it didn't segue into I always forget what that next song, Mediate. You know, Love Will Tear Us Apart is great on here. The title song, Kick, just solid from start to finish. And definitely one of my all-time favorite 80s albums. And then INXS Kick, I almost feel there's like a little dip. So you had Shabooh Shoobah, great. The Swing, yeah, okay. Then, you know, you had Listen Like Thieves, and then Kick. And then there was a bit of a dip again with X. I remember being really disappointed in this when it came out. I mean, I think Suicide Blonde was a solid track off of here, but by and large, just felt a little too safe for me. You know, like with Kick, you had Guns in the Sky, which is something that INXS had never done before. It was almost like a bit of a rap, you know, just kind of a, I don't know, it was just different. And there was some bold stuff on there on Kick that INXS had never tried before. This just felt like they were kind of treading water. Like, I mean, it's fine. If you like INXS, it's a pleasant enough album, but I just wish they'd taken a little bit more risks on here. A Suicide Blonde, like I say, is great, but then after that, it's just kind of, you know, it doesn't really do a whole lot for me. I enjoy listening to it, but it's not one of my favorites, and I just, you know, expectations were so high after Kick, and so I remember being kind of bummed out that I wasn't more excited about this particular album. This has got individual photos of all the band members and the lyrics. And then the live album, and I don't know how you pronounce it, Live Baby Live, I believe is the proper pronunciation. However, since it is a live album, you could also pronounce it Live Baby Live, I suppose. You know, and I mean, it's an INXS live album. They do the songs great. They're energetic. You know, it's cool to kind of, I never attended an INXS concert, so this is the closest thing that, you know, I would ever have in terms of hearing INXS live, but, you know, I like it. Decent enough, and they cover all the hits, everything that you would expect them to cover. And then the last INXS cassette that I have, and this is where I kind of, you know, my listening to INXS kind of dropped off a little bit. This album, and then the next one, Full Moon, Dirty Hearts. I think after that album came out, and I just remember it was like maybe a little too alternative, grungy for me. You know, wasn't super thrilled about it. This one I liked a lot. Although, you know, Heaven Sent was a really cool rocker. I think that's the hardest that INXS has ever rocked. But, you know, Taste It is great. There's just some really cool, you know, cool beats. Just, you know, a lot to like about INXS here. Almost like a return to form. This was kind of the album that I wish had followed Kick instead of X. But, you know, I'm glad we got it nonetheless. The album packaging is different depending on whether you had the vinyl or whether you had the CD. This is what the cassette looks like. And album lyrics and a bunch of photographs here on the back. Some of which may have been used for, you know, like singles for the different albums, but that is my INXS cassette collection. So thank you for indulging me. If you're an INXS fan, I'd love to hear what your favorites are, and thanks for watching, and take care.